Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, so today we are going to be doing one of those eschatology type shows about the Messianic era and the things that we're experiencing today. And we're going to take a special look again at the U.S. elections, why what is happening. And this is going to be looked at from the spiritual realm of the workings behind the U.S. elections. I have today Rabbi Mendel Kessin, who's going to be joining me on the show, and he is yet another rabbi. Not all rabbis say this, but I interviewed one last week and another one today now, who is saying that it looks like, according to their understanding of the Tanakh, of the Bible, and of what our sages write, that U.S. President Donald Trump will win these elections. Now, this is very interesting because the press has already said that Joe Biden has won, and a lot of his voters are saying, well, I would say all of his voters are saying he's won, leave it alone, concede, be a good sport, et cetera, et cetera. But there are people who are saying, no, he's got to see this out because, indeed, according to at least the rabbi I interviewed last week and Rabbi Kessin, that it looks like Donald Trump actually will come out the winner in the U.S. elections. Now, this is a live show. If you would like to call in and ask a question to the rabbi, you can do so. And our numbers are on the top of our homepage at israelnewstalkradio.com. We will let you come on the air and ask your question to him. And I find this very, very fascinating. What indeed is going to happen? It's already how long? Since November 3rd, and we're on the 16th of November already. What is happening? Still do not have an official winner. Maybe one in the press, in the media. But officially, there is still no winner of the U.S. presidential elections. Anyway, we're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
So we're taking a look at the spiritual realm workings of the U.S. elections and what is taking us into the Messianic era. And our guest today is Rabbi Mendel Kessin. He's an internationally known lecturer and educator that has spoken extensively throughout the world on Jewish thought, the Messianic process, and a wide expanse on other Jewish topics. He holds a Ph.D. in psychology and runs a private practice in Brooklyn and Lakewood. He divides his time between Jerusalem and the tri-state area. And you can visit his website at www.torahthinking.com, and you can check out his YouTube channel as well. Now, Rabbi Kessin just came out, very interestingly enough, with a video a few days ago called 21st Century, The Inner Meaning of the 2020 Elections. And as you know, I interviewed another rabbi last week who was saying that before people get all excited that Joe Biden is going to be the president of the United States, he said Donald Trump is actually going to come out the winner. And I believe that Rabbi Kessin is going to be telling us more or less the same thing, that it looks like that Donald Trump actually will be the winner of the U.S. elections. He's going to tell us why he believes so, and if he's not, why he may not be. And if you have any comments or questions, or I should say questions we're going to take on the show today only, you can call in and state briefly what your question is, and the rabbi will try to answer that for you. And with no more further ado, welcome to the show, Rabbi Mendel Kessin.
Thank you for having me.
It's very, very good to have you on. All right, so we see that the media has already called the results, even though there has been no legal and final official election result. And Trump is in the courts now. He's trying to prove that a lot of the ballots were fake or were voted by dead people, dogs, sometimes double, triple votes for the same person, and general election fraud. And interestingly enough, when Hillary Clinton was saying to Joe Biden, whatever you do, don't concede, just wait, don't concede. And now it's happening on the other side. All of a sudden, it's not okay. And the people do want to have already an official answer of who won. What do you have to say about all of this?
Well, the main idea is that one can understand current events based on the newspapers, their accounts in terms of why things happen, historical reasons, and so on, Or one can try to base current events, the interpretation of current events, based on the divine agenda or the divine plan of creation. So there are really two ways to go. For many years now, certainly I've been trying to base my understanding of current events not on what looks to be, the accounts in the newspapers and the magazines and so on, but rather on the concept of that there is a divine plan of creation. And from the perspective of that plan, to take a look at what is happening. And based on that, in 2016, actually in 15, I had predicted that Trump would win because I recognized that Trump fulfills a specific slot in the ongoing ability of the Jews actually to do what's called a tikkun, which means to bring God back into creation and to prepare the world for a messianic era. And I realized at that point in time that Trump does have a major part. And I explained, then and many times since, what that part is. And we see what the idea is that even though Esav, who's the brother of Yaakov, even though he went obviously off the path of righteousness and he became a tremendously evil person, but he's still used in the capacity of his service as somebody who helps in the tikkun. A tikkun itself means, of course, to rectify or to correct an existential state and to repair it. Right now we live in a world that is devoid of the presence of God. And the concept of tikkun, which the Jews are supposed to do, the concept of tikkun is to bring God back. And the one who does that, basically, is the Messiah, the Mashiach. That's what he does. You see, and when everything will have been completed, then he will come with the presence of God, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, and the world will have achieved its purpose, you see. And Esav, who is the brother of Yaakov, has a specific purpose in that. And I had mentioned that Esav does tshuva in the end of time, and there are many chazal, which are the rabbis, indicate clearly that Esav, in the end, does tshuva. He repents. And as a result of that, he will now assist his brother Jacob to do tshuva, or rather to do the tikkun, you see. Now, I recognized then, quite a while ago, let's say many years ago, that Trump is a reincarnation of, I said that, of Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, who was a tremendous friend and actually somebody really loved Rabbi HaKodesh, Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. And therefore he has tremendous merits. This person who was an emperor of Rome had tremendous merits. And I mentioned that previously in many of my lectures. And I believe that Donald Trump, is a reincarnation of that individual who has come back to assist the Jews. And as such, he really has 4 jobs, all of it to elevate the Jewish people. The first job is to assist the Jewish people to get back the land of Israel. One of the interesting things that we find by Esav, that he tried to do tshuva, repentance, in the Torah, in the Bible. He tried to do that. When he met Jacob, after Jacob came back from Lavan, he meets Esav, as we know in Parshas Vayishlach, and as a result of that, that meeting, Esav wanted to, in many ways, repent. In fact, he says, Yehi lecho ashelach, let that which is yours be yours, and that is a clear statement, and Rashi says this, that let that which is yours means the blessings which I had accused you of should remain yours. So we see, therefore, that Esav recognizes the things that Yaakov, which he claimed had taken illegally, is now really belongs to Yaakov. And one of them, of course, is the land of Israel. And so that's the first purpose of Esav, which we see in the Torah. And that's exactly what Donald Trump has done. He has restored an enormous amount of the land of Israel to the Jewish people. And no president has ever done that before. And the amazing thing is that he does it even though it's really contrary or counter America's interests. Because we know that clearly it turns off the Arabs, Palestinians. They're very angry at that. And he still does it. He has declared Jerusalem to be the capital. He has moved his embassy there. And of course, if Jerusalem is the capital, then Israel must be a state with a capital. So inadvertently, or rather indirectly, has declared Israel to be the state of Israel, the state of the Jews. He has given back the Golan, declared the Golan to be legally Israel. He has removed the stigma or the accusation that to take over the territory is breaking international law. He has clearly said that it's not true, you see. And not only that, what he's doing is beyond belief. He's the first and only president in history, really, to bring back the Arabs, to allow the Arabs to ally themselves with the Jews. Bahrain, and we have the United Arab Emirates, probably and also we have Sudan coming on,
right,
and Oman. There are many Arab countries that want to join, and they say there are at least 5 or 10 of them that want to join Israel for many reasons. But all of that is messianic. People do not realize that this can only happen in a messianic era. And Trump has done that. He clearly deserves a Nobel Prize for all of this. So that's certainly the first task of Trump as a reincarnation of this person, Marcus Aurelius Antoninus. The second job is to protect Israel from its enemies, which he has done. We remember Nikki Haley in the UN. She was splendid, incredible what she did in the UN. She confronted them, faced them off, and said, "What are you doing? You are treating Israel unfairly." And of course, that was with the agreement, of course, of President Trump. So not only the UN, but also Iran. I mean, Iran is almost collapsed, actually. And we have the Iran. We have also Europe, which we know in many ways against Israel. In many ways, he has faced off many enemies of the Jewish people. He certainly talks against anti-Semitism. He went against the colleges, which in many ways the academia is anti-Semitic. That is his second task, is to protect the Jews from their enemies.
Okay, Rabbi, hold it right there because we have to take a break. And when we get back, we're going to be asking him about why he believes Donald Trump has to continue as the President of the United States. We'll be right back.
Sure.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Siminto from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Siminto, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
The spiritual realm workings of the U.S. elections 2020. And our guest is Rabbi Mendel Kessin. He is here talking to us about why he believes that Donald J. Trump's term as president should not be ending right now, why he believes, and others too, by the way, that he will indeed win this election, that he hasn't finished the job that God has given him in order to move mankind forward in the Messianic era. So, Rabbi, I wanted to ask you, we have what's called the Abraham Accords, and it's aptly named, by the way, because it's between the children of Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac, or Ismael and Isaac, Yitzchak. And we see something, as you said, it's just messianic what's happening, that all of a sudden, after decades and decades of warfare between the Arab states and Israel, and now they can't wait to get in line to make peace with Israel, this is something supernatural. I think anybody would agree with that. And now to stop this in the very middle, and Trump would go out and Biden would just move everything backwards to where it was before, where would you like to start?
Well, I just want to complete the idea I had started, and that is that I mentioned the second task of Trump is to protect Israel against its enemies, which I mentioned. The third job, in many ways, is to make America great. Now, you may ask yourself, well, what does that have to do with Israel? But the problem is that when America is not, of a very high status, then people do not respect America. But when America is great, in terms of being a tremendous world leader, then everybody wants to be on the side of America. They all want to curry favor with America. And therefore, one of the best ways to curry favor with America in terms of Trump is to befriend Israel. So therefore, that making America great is to get people to want to curry favor, as I said, with America. And the way to do that, since Trump really loves Israel, you can see that, is to become allied with Israel. So that's a very important thing. And the fourth task, which is interesting, is that God wants America. It's really the Tov Sheb'Esav. It's the good part of Esav. And God does not want America to be so corrupt and so immoral, which it has become. So therefore, what Trump is doing is something remarkable. The status of a nation in terms of its corruption is really based on the judicial system. And if the judges are corrupt, then the whole nation is corrupt. if the judges rule unfairly, then the whole nation becomes immoral. So what he has done is he has appointed over 300 federal judges, and they're young. So for decades now, the federal system will be manned by judges that are conservative. And we know, of course, that he's appointed 3 different conservative Supreme Court justices. So that will help enormously in terms of the righteousness of America, you see. So part of his job is really to turn America around and make it into a much more righteous nation as opposed to what it is now, you see. So this is exactly what a messianic figure does, and that's what he's doing. Now, in terms of what you mentioned, the Arabs want to ally themselves. We know that. But it's more than just the fact that Iran is an enemy to them. They realize that oil is going out in the sense that, you know, there are many things that are replacing oil. Not only that, America has become the oil capital of the world. America is the greatest exporter of oil because of fracking, you see. And therefore, as such, America has become independent of oil, you see. And therefore, the Arabs realize that their economy, which is based 95% on oil, cannot sustain the Arab countries. So they have to get into other types of economic success, whether it be high tech or whatever. And therefore, obviously, the best way to do that is to ally themselves with a superpower in their midst, which is Israel. Because Israel occupies a position of tremendous advancement and power in the world, not only in terms of its army and its ability in terms of cyber warfare and security and so on, but also in terms of agriculture, in terms of water conservation, as I said, in terms of high tech. There are many things that Israel is really a superpower, especially in terms of electronics and medicine. Israel is a forerunner, but therefore they want to ally themselves with Israel. Now, the idea to that is not just this, but according to the divine plan, Yishmael, who is the son of Abraham, Avram, does tshuva. He also does tshuva. He also repents in the end of time. And therefore, as such, he will restore or he will come back to the Jews. And that's exactly what's happening. In fact, it's incredible to read what's happening between the United Arab Emirates and Israel. There's an enormous amount of trade possibilities going on. I mean, I understand you have kosher restaurants now in the you imagine in the United Arab Emirates you have kosher restaurants. There are hotels that are going to be kosher for Passover. There are tens of thousands of people that are going to go to Abu Dhabi or Bahrain or Dubai for Passover, hopefully without the COVID and so on. But it's incredible to watch an Arab nation that used to be such an enemy to Israel has now become a tremendous friend of Israel and supporter and sponsor.
Rabbi, let me ask you this very briefly,
Sure.
An answer, because I want you to have time for other things. But where does Persia, Iran, and Turkey come in to the picture?
Well, there are two ideas here. Turkey, Erdogan, whatever he calls himself, he's a megalomaniac, plain and simple. And what he sees himself as being the real heir, to the Ottoman Empire. That's what he wants, But I understand his country's collapsing. He's doing very poorly. And Turkey, in fact, used to be very good allies with Israel. But look, it's only a matter of time until Erdogan will be thrown out because the country's about to collapse economically. Now, in terms of Iran, Iran is ancient Persia, you see, and there's a medrash that says at the end of time, Iran will wage a war or attempt to wage a war against the entire world, and they will be rebuffed, and that will be, as the medrash says, that God says, Higiya zman geulaschem, the time of your redemption has arrived. And what that means is that the war that will happen between Israel and Iran, and most likely there will be a war, will be really the last war before the Mashiach. And this has been predicted 2,000 years ago in the Medrash. So Iran is really the old Persia coming back to life to reclaim its supremacy among the nations. But they will be rebuffed, and basically they will be destroyed, but not in a way of an actual destruction. What will happen is the mullahs will be thrown out. And it's very possible that the people of Iran, since it's almost collapsing, will overthrow finally the Shiite Muslims, and the whole Iran will collapse.
Rabbi,
and Iran will change.
One of our listeners from the UK is asking about Nibiru. It's supposed to be some star or planet that comes along our way and supposed to wreak havoc somehow with Earth. Are you aware of anything like that?
I heard about that, but I'm not into astrology because that's basically what it is. So that's not my forte, as they say. I follow the divine plan, not based on astrology, but based on the sources in the Talmud, in the Medrash, of course, in the Tanakh, of course, and basically in Hashkafa.
So there's nothing in our sources that talk about in the end of days there's going to be some type of meteorite showers upon Earth?
Well, there are statements in the Zohar that talk about certain astrological signs. Yes. I mean, I had mentioned actually many years ago that there was a concept called a tetrad, if you remember, about 5-6 years ago. And that was where there was a red moon 4 times on Rosh Chodesh, 4 different Rosh Chodesh new months. Was first Nisan, and then it was Sukkot, then it was again Nisan, and then Sukkot, 4 times. And what's interesting, it says in Yoel, Perek Dalet, I think it's Pasuk Dalet, or I should say Perek Gimel Pasuk Dalet, that I will blot out the sun, and I will make the moon red. And that was before what God says, before the coming of the great day, which of course is the Messianic era. And that was a blood moon, a red moon, 4 times in a row. That is very rare. It's a very rare event. And that's actually stated, that, as I said, in the prophet Yoel, Perek Gimel Pasuk Dalet. And that happened about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, Rabbi, we're gonna be going to a break again now. When we get back, I'd like if you can share with our listeners in the last segment again the things that U.S. President Donald Trump, you believe, is supposed to do before he leaves office, and this is the reason why you believe that he's going to stay in office, because he hasn't completed these things. And just list them for us if you can. And we're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening louder. You're very far away.
Yes. And you're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We'll be right back.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
and me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We're talking about the results of the U.S. elections 2020 via the spiritual realm. What are we going to see? Why? And our guest is Rabbi Mendel Kessin from TorahThinking.com. You can check out his videos as well on his YouTube channel. And he's here talking to us about why he also believes that Donald Trump, in the end, will officially win the U.S. elections. And Rabbi, I wanted to ask you again why you believe so. What are the things that lead you to this conclusion?
Well, there are two perspectives. One is a natural perspective, and the other is the divine agenda perspective. You have to realize something. What is happening in America is something which is absolutely terrible. It's a constitutional crisis. And what that means is that this election has been corrupted. And what that does is there is three very bad things. And this is looking at it from a natural standpoint. And that's one of the reasons why I believe, hopefully, that he will win or remain as president. The first thing, it destroys the credibility of an election. So that means 72 million people voted for Donald Trump. And most people believe that this election has been corrupted, cheated, you see, and it's a fraud. So what happens is that if the votes are not counted and many of them are not disqualified, then people will not believe in the credibility or the validity of an election. And you should know the essential feature of a democracy is a free and transparent election. That's the essence of a democracy. And the Democrats have made a mockery of that entire idea. So that's the first idea. The second thing is that if that's the case, then there's no credibility to this election, then Joe Biden has no authority at all. So any law that he passes, people will realize or they'll feel that he has absolutely no authority because he's not a legally elected president. And the third idea, which is even worse, is that it could easily lead to a civil war because people will reject the authority of Joe Biden, especially if he comes out with laws like taking away the Second Amendment of guns and so on, that when he comes out with that kind of laws, there actually could be a tremendous resistance and rebellion of America. Half America voted for Trump, and that there could be tremendous resistance, and you can actually see, God forbid, a civil war. So I believe, therefore, that the Supreme Court will realize that this is a constitutional crisis, and they will intervene and decide that the 7 states, which is really hanging in the balance, really has to have a recount, but more important, that it has to be a recount of legal ballots because it's a constitutional crisis. So that is from the natural view, natural standpoint. From the divine agenda standpoint, which is obviously much more real and much more important, I believe that, that Trump is a messianic figure. He's the Messiah of Edom, not of the Jews, but of Edom, that is destined to come back and assist the Jews and help the Jews restore its monarchy, which is the Mashiach, the messianic figure, and also to build the Beis HaMikdash. There's actually
the third temple
that says that Edom is going to help the Jews build the third temple. You see? So therefore, this is what America is, a Tov Shebe'esav, the good part of Esav, and that has to really continue. Trump is in the middle of doing a job that he is really assigned to do to help bring the Messianic era. And for him to all of a sudden terminate makes absolutely no sense when you think about that. Especially that he has accomplished so many incredible things, in his while he's president. It doesn't make any sense that he should now terminate. And there's something else, because you have to remember, it's not just Trump helping Israel and usher in the entire Messianic process. It's worse than that in the sense that Joe Biden is not going to last, because Joe Biden is becoming senile quite rapidly. That's number one. Joe Biden is also beholden to the radical leftists and the Democratic Party, which has become tremendous progressives and leftists, and he's not going to last. he espouses socialism and communism. So therefore, he can actually destroy America with those ideas. And besides, when you think about it, Joe Biden has no record. He has done nothing for 47 years, nothing significant, you see. So if you really think about it, it's very possible that Joe Biden will not last, and Harris will become president, and she is the worst. She's a terrible radical leftist, and she will turn America into a communist state. Already Joe Biden is promising to undo all the regulations that Trump removed and got rid of, and that's what caused such an unbelievable economic success. He's already saying he's going to get rid of that. He's going to join the Paris Accords, which will cost America. It's going to bankrupt America, and besides that, he's going to tax America to death. He's going to allow any immigrant to come in, anybody, and that'll turn America into a third world country. And of course, he's going to give free education to these immigrants, right, and free health. He's going to bankrupt America. That's what he's going to do. And as a result of that, you can ask yourself, well, how then is America going to help Israel bring the Mashiach if Joe Biden will destroy America?
So, Rabbi, first of all, I want to say that, Kamala Harris's name in Hebrew, Harris, means like destruction, which is kind of interesting. And second of all, one of our guests from Kansas City is asking, couldn't Donald Trump do that in 2024? In other words, if Biden does win and he's officially the winner, couldn't Trump come back in 2024 and finish his job?
The answer to that is yes. Theoretically, he could. But the problem is that there's too much to do before the Mashiach comes. I mentioned that the Zohar says that the English year, 2240, is the end of the 6,000 years. The Hebrew year 6,000, 2240, and that's the end of the physical world. The earth as we know it will cease. So the Zohar says, it's in Araya Mehemna, whatever, that 210 years before that, the resurrection of the dead will commence. Now, the resurrection of the dead commences after the Mashiach ben David, and we know 210 years before 2240 is 2030. That's in less than a little more than 9 years, which is astounding. That means in order to get to that, you have to have the Mashiach ben Yosef, the Joseph Messiah, and then you can have the Davidic Messiah, and then you can have the resurrection of the dead. So as it is, we only have about 9 years, which is very little time, you see, because there's so much that has to be done. Israel has to become tremendously great among the nations. Israel has to get back all its territory, you see. Israel has to build the Beis HaMikdash.
The third temple.
Ben Yosef has to appear, and there has to be a tremendous rehabilitation of the Jewish people, because the Mashiach is not going to come to a Jewish people that are almost all alienated, unaffiliated, and intermarried and assimilated. So therefore, God is going to restore them, as I once pointed out, because it says, even if your outcast be at the ends of heaven, from there, from the ends of heaven in itself, it says that, from there I will gather you, and from there I will take you to me. Now, what does it mean? It means that God will gather and take the Jews from the actual nation in which they are outcasts. So how's that going to happen if Joe Biden is busy destroying the United States? He's not going to leave the United States the way Trump did. He is beholden to the leftists. And you have no idea what this man is going to do. And if he gets the Senate to be Democratic, that is the end of the United States.
All right, Rabbi, we only have a minute left. So are you saying that in the year 2030, within 10 years, we're going to see the resurrection of the dead?
Yes.
Wow.
That's what the Zohar says.
And the Messiah is supposed to come in what year, do you think?
Well, the
Today.
Mashiach ben Yosef, the Messiah of Joseph, he will come now, because there's so much to do before the resurrection of the dead.
Do you have any idea who that is?
Do I know who that is?
Yes.
That's an interesting question. I'll tell you something. If I don't know, I can't tell you, obviously, because I don't know. And if I do know it, it's forbidden for me to tell you.
All right.
So therefore, you've got to guess what I do and what I don't know.
All right.
But
we're going to have
idea,
to... Yeah. You have 20 seconds, Rabbi. Quickly. What do you want to leave us with? 20 seconds.
The critical thing is do mitzvahs. Because you don't want to be saying to yourself when the Mashiach comes, and by the way, when he does come, there is no more free will. It's over. So there's no reward to be gathered anymore. You don't want to be saying to yourself, I should have listened to the people that said that we are about to enter the Messianic era. Think about it. Get spiritual. Think about spiritual matters. Learn Torah. Do mitzvahs. Do chesed. Right? And you have to alter your life in the direction of spirituality. Because all your materialism is going to be abruptly ended.
Rabbi Mendel
That's
Kessin, God bless you. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Wish we had more time. www.torah-thinking.com. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. You can write me tomorrow at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Thank you, Rabbi Mendel Kessin.
Thank you.
Amazing.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom! Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.